This is Hemant Mehta on the right. He's famous atheist YouTuber, blogger. On the left is Jonathan Shelley. He is a famous hate preacher, like an extremist nutcase hate preacher. Oh my God, dude. And he preaches largely about the LGBT community and how they deserve the death penalty. I mean, it's nuts. It's crazy stuff. Anyway, they sat down to have a conversation with each other, surprisingly. So I want to give this a listen, see what they have to say. And while we listen to this, we're going to play some Breath of the Wild 2, Tears of the Kingdom. If you never played before, it shouldn't bother you too much. It won't, it'll just be in the background. Also, this isn't part one. If you didn't see the others, don't sweat it. This stands independently of the rest. I'll get context if it's missing. But with all that said, let's listen.
Do you watch the sermons, or do you have other people watch them for you?
I wish I had
I assume he watches them. I watch them.
a staff of people. I do not. It's me.
It's always you.
How many sermons do you think you've watched?
Too many. I don't have a number for you.
Okay.
I mean, shit, we sit here every week, and watch this stuff on my Unfiltered channel. Every single week we watch shit together. So it's kind of the same thing, right? This is exactly what Hemant Mehta does. He sits here and he takes notes. I play at double speed if I'm doing it solo without an audience. And I just kind of go through. I take a ton of notes, and then I filter out the notes and find the, say, 3 most egregious, insane clips. Like, I've watched Kanye West say crazy shit in a bunch of videos. And oftentimes I share the notes with Hemant Mehta and Right Wing Watch, Kyle Mintila is his name, and others like that. If I take, like, meticulous notes, I give it to others so they don't have to.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I actually gave Hemant Mehta the notes to this because a lot of the time it's really difficult to tell what's interesting or valuable or odd when you're in the middle of it, like when you are the subject of the conversation. So I took notes on everything. I clipped out a bunch of stuff, and I sent the clips to Hemant Mehta in case he wants to talk about it.
Now, you watch a lot of people because I've seen clips. You have Greg Locke, John MacArthur.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen other charismatic preachers, a lot of new IFB preachers. Who's your favorite preacher?
Define favorites.
Well, I'll wait in 2. The one you listen to the most, and then the one you want to listen to the most.
I don't want to listen to any of you.
Is it like a moth of...
I don't know. I'm interested in it. I want to listen to them to hear the absolutely insane shit that they say because it's so deeply psychotic, So it's not like I'm putting myself through like a hard time or something to listen to these guys. I mean, that's what we're all doing here, right? We're all sitting here listening to this nutter buttery unfold.
Flame, or what's the deal?
Sometimes. Depends on the subject. If something bad happened, Pulse nightclub massacre, something like that happens, then I'm definitely curious because I figure you're going to say something about it. If the sermon is about some Bible chapter that is pretty random,
Yeah.
I probably don't care. With someone like Greg Locke, who I don't think you guys are fans of either.
No.
He
That's interesting.
has a lot of people who watch his stuff because he talks about politics all the time. I don't feel the need to watch a lot of his stuff because other people will flag if anything comes up. I don't think so. That's it. I kind of have a sense of I know there are certain people who watch these people, and so.
So you have no favorite?
Favorite's the wrong word. It's
What about least favorite? Does that apply?
all of you are my least favorite equally.
Equally.
That's funny.
Like,
You are like my bad children.
like, what about Catholic priests? Do you think that they're better than
They're
us?
boring. In general, they're boring.
Okay.
It's just very
Because you don't
traditional.
really listen to, I guess, a lot of other denominations from my viewpoint. You kind of have charismatics, maybe.
You know what it is?
And then us.
Catholics are well known. I know how they preach. Most people who have been involved in the Catholic Church know what to expect from them. So there's no surprises coming from them. That's why really the only time if the Catholic Church makes any news, it's if the Pope did an interview on 60 Minutes or
Sure, I can agree with that.
some bishop said something egregious or there's a sex abuse scandal or a lawsuit, something like that. Those are newsworthy. Most of the stuff they do is not generally that interesting or newsworthy, right? I don't think people are paying attention to what the new IFB does as much. I believe, as you probably know, it is growing to some degree.
What is the NIFB? Oh God, don't tell me that. I think he's right. I think it is growing, sadly.
And the thing, I think it serves a couple purposes to point out the things you guys say, because I genuinely believe you are following the Bible and saying, hey, look, these people follow the Bible, and this is what ensues from that, and these are the things they say. I think it's interesting to point that out. And it doesn't mean you represent the vast majority of Christianity. You don't. But it's like you're almost making my point for me, which is that if you're blind...
But is your problem really with our version of Christianity, or is your problem with the fact that the Bible says these things and we're really doing those things? Like, is your...
No, I don't think that's... Look, here's my issue with it. The Bible, technically, I suppose, kind of says some of the things that he espouses here, but he's taking it completely out of context. He's ignoring the cultural context from the era, and he's reading parts that Christians should view as irrelevant because the Mosaic Law, for example, is just like done away with. Why does he hate gay people based on Leviticus 18 and 20, but not eat pork?
Quick interjection, this won't take long, I promise. I'd appreciate it if you watched to the end of the video, or at least a couple extra seconds, because YouTube bases its algorithm off of watch time. The more watch time a video has, the further the video will go. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. The 100 questions are intended to challenge a religious leader, so I'd appreciate it if you give it a read. Okay, back to the video.
Why is he okay with eating pork or shellfish while hating gay people based on those verses? It doesn't make any sense. He's found a justification to hold the beliefs that he holds. He didn't get his ideas from the Bible. He got his ideas and found a justification in the Bible for those ideas. That's the way that I see it.
Problem really with the Bible, or is it with us, how we approach the Bible?
It's your focus on certain scriptures as opposed to the rest of the... I don't remember hearing you guys give a big sermon on the Sermon on the Mount. Like, you don't spend a ton of time talking about Jesus says help the poor, let's do that. Because that doesn't come up very often, not nearly as much as the anti-gay stuff does, or things like that.
Yeah, fair enough. And you know what? Proportional to the number of times that Jesus talked about gay people, or let me rephrase, proportional to the number of verses in the Bible that talk about caring for the poor compared to how many verses talk about, like, gay people, they are focusing way too heavily on the LGBT community. I mean, it only talks about being gay at all in 6 verses out of 32,000 or so. Why is he zeroing in on that? And Jesus didn't say a word about it.
When it comes to your upbringing, I'm curious, were you raised a Calvinist?
No.
Were you raised Christian?
No.
He was Jain, I believe, and Calvinist. Why would he assume Calvinist? Okay.
Were you raised...
Jain. It's a smaller Indian religion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it a form of Hinduism?
There's a little bit of overlap. It's relatively minor in terms of numbers, but they believe in heaven and hell and karma and reincarnation and some things like that.
So I preached a sermon, and a lot of it had to do with you. You know the sermon I'm bringing up, kind of, right?
There's been a couple.
Well, there was one. It was like I mentioned like Hemant Mehta is a fool or something like that.
That sounds about right.
Okay, you made a comment where you said it's like my parents are writing this guy's sermon or something.
Oh,
what was that? What did that mean?
Oh, I mean, if you want to, Asian parents are super critical of their kids. Always.
So just like me calling you a fool is similar to how your parents would call you a fool or something?
Oh, yeah.
But it didn't have anything to do with Christianity.
No.
It was more just like mocking you as being dumb or something?
Yeah.
So do you feel like...
Interesting. Okay.
Like your parents made fun of you a lot?
Critical. It's not making fun. It's like, it's never good enough. You know what I mean?
Like, do they look at you as like a success?
No. They don't know what I do.
Okay. They just
Wow, that's interesting.
confused about being a political commentator
They
or
don't
like
know
a
what
news commentator or whatever?
I genuinely think if you ask them, what does Hemant do for a living? They don't know the answer.
He watches New IB sermons.
I know. I don't think they could tell you. I write about stuff, what I write about, what I talk about.
Dude, I wonder why. That's really interesting.
I'm sure they have a general sense that I do something to do with religion, which isn't what they intended for me to be doing. So that's it. We don't really talk about it. We don't have arguments about it. It's just, yeah, whatever, you do your thing. I don't think they know what I do, but I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah, I understand.
That's
And that's what they wanted from him. I see.
where you're calling me a fool? Yeah, well, guess
Sure.
what? I hear that all the
Right.
time.
So, what does, in your opinion, the Bible say someone has to do to be saved?
Except Jesus.
And what does that mean?
Believe in his divinity.
This is super interesting from an outside perspective, what he thinks about this, because there are conflicting viewpoints.
Quick interjection. This won't take long, I promise. I just want to say I'd appreciate it if you check my Patreon. OwenMorgan.com/Patreon to find it. YouTube's algorithm goes up and down, so I can never predict where it's going to be. Having patrons gives me some level of stability. Okay, back to the video.
There are two different verses in the Bible that talk about what you have to do to be saved. One says you are saved through grace and grace alone, so no man can boast. And the other says faith without works is dead. And when there's a contradiction like that in the Bible, usually people take the most recent or the newest verse as canon, understanding that like people just didn't understand when the older one was written down, and now God has shed more light on it or whatever. Except those verses were written down in the same time period, so there isn't a newer one. So it depends on what you believe about the Bible, who you side with. Now, if you want to if you want to go with what Jesus said, you have to love the poor, love your fellow man, take care of people, be a good person, show the fruits of the Holy Spirit, love, joy, peace, kindness, long-suffering, patience, blah, 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 blah. But after Jesus died, Paul kind of wanted to make Christianity like an easy religion to be a part of. Paul was an apostle that he named himself an apostle posthumously. Like he never met Jesus, didn't know Jesus. But 3 years after Jesus died, he joined Christianity and started, talking about all of this stuff. So anyway, Paul wanted to make this an easy religion. He wanted to make it the lazy man's religion, basically. So he said, all you have to do is believe in Jesus. That's it. And as time went on, after Paul was long gone, when scribes were copying these things down, they slowly but surely added little things here or there that they wanted. These scribes did. Or like a lot of the time there would only be like one person in a church that was capable of reading or writing, and somebody would come from out of town to visit this new Christian church, and they'd have another book with them. So the only guy in the church that was capable of reading or writing would be tasked with copying down the new book. And if this church already had ideas about women and not liking them, and how involved they are in the church or whatever, they'd just kind of stick that little verse in there to make it so that women weren't allowed to be part of leadership. And that's exactly what happened. The verses, I think it's 2 Timothy 2:12, or is it 1 Timothy 2:12? One of the Timothys. It was written by Paul. But that verse in there, I shall not suffer a woman to teach, she shall be in subjugation to a man, she shall be quiet, whatever. That's fake. That was added later. Paul did not write that. Dude, this guy's in my way. Paul didn't write that. So the point is that it just kind of like, if you want to know which person or which verses to trust on the subject, it's hard to know. But if you're a Christian, I'd say go with what Christ said about it. Be kind to the poor, love people, have patience and long suffering and blah, blah, blah. Feed the hungry, give water to them, visit them while they're in prison. Just generally be a good person. That's what Jesus expected of people. Hemant Mehta is going with it's called Pauline, the Pauline or Pauline interpretation of just believe. That's it.
Saved.
Except Jesus.
And what does that mean?
Believe in his divinity.
Yeah, Paul said that if you accept Jesus into your heart, then the fruits of the Holy Spirit will simply manifest in you. Like, if you aren't kind and loving and taking care of the poor and all that stuff, then it's a sign that you haven't really actually accepted Jesus into your heart. You've said that you have, but you haven't actually. It's not something that you have to fight or try to do. It's something that just happens. You're just a good person when you do this. So anyway.
I mean, if you what
Do you think salvation, according to the Bible, is by works or by faith?
depends on your interpretation. I think it's
Well, it depends on the verse that you read.
by faith. Yeah, it's not by works. I think that is how most evangelicals and Christians, Southern Baptists, Protestants, that's how they see it.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. Although they pretend to view it as faith-based, not works-based. But then they say, if you're gay, then blah, or if you do this, or if you do that, then you aren't going to make it into heaven. So they pretend that it's faith-based when it's actually works-based.
And again, there's a lot of difference on the specific theologies and stuff.
Sure.
So the question of what is it that binds all of you together, I mean, the list has to be short because everyone has different opinions on that. But yeah, that's the fundamental thing. It's like, yeah, you accept the divinity of Jesus, salvation through him alone, stuff like that.
Do you have a favorite sermon?
No.
Okay. You label us hate preachers pretty often. What makes me a hate preacher?
It's not that you say homosexuality is a sin, because that's almost standard for
It's probably
pretty much-
everyone, almost.
Yeah, that's pretty much most Christian
Other than like United
denominations.
Methodist or something.
Yeah, pretty much.
Presbyterians.
Some.
Oh my God, yes. Preachers say this. Okay, I get it. Jesus, dude. They don't have to keep inserting preachers that they hate. Jesus.
Other than like United
denominations.
Methodist or something.
Yeah, pretty much.
Presbyterians.
Some. Only
It's,
some.
it's that next step to
Just shut the fuck up, man. My God, these people are insufferable.
Presbyterians.
Some.
How come you know so much about the Bible? Are you a theologist? Says Albahax. I assume that's directed toward me. I guess it depends on what you mean by theologist. Have I gone to a theology school to get a theology degree? No. But I have studied all the stuff that's discussed in theology schools. And I've studied scholars on these subjects. None of these ideas are original to me that I espouse about the Bible. I'm getting this from experts. I am not even an expert. I'm just condensing and repeating, I guess you could say, what experts say on various different subjects. That's it.
Only some.
It's that next step to say, because they're gay, they deserve the death penalty. Because they act on it, they deserve the death penalty, that the government should execute them. That crosses the line into, no, you don't. You're not just saying it's a sin, and just like gluttony is a sin, just like these other things are a sin, because that is what some preachers will say, right?
That's probably a bad choice to give gluttony as an example of a sin, because that's one of the 7 deadly sins. And the 7 deadly sins are not actually in the Bible. That's like a Catholic belief system thing. But these guys probably wouldn't agree with that. But anyway.
Right? Yeah, it's a sin. But we believe all these things are sins, and they're all equally sinful. It's that special focus on certain sins above other ones that I think you give to it, and the way you think it ought to be dispensed when it comes to the punishments. That to me is... That's what,
So if I believe in the death penalty for murderers and adulterers, but I didn't believe it for homosexuals, would I still be a hate preacher?
for people.
If you believed in it for murderers and what was it?
So if I believe in the death penalty for murderers
Yeah.
and adulterers, but I didn't believe it for homosexuals,
Okay. Murderers and adulterers, would you be a hate preacher? I would say yes. You'd still be a hate preacher if you preach hate about any demographic. It doesn't stop at protected classes for me, like race, sexual orientation, gender, religion, whatever. It doesn't stop there for me. Morally, I'd say yes. He's still a hate preacher. Legally, I don't think that hate preacher is even a designation legally anyway.
would I still be a hate preacher?
For people who took someone else's life, and sorry, you said murderers and who
For
else?
murderers and adulterers. Let's say I believe in the death penalty for
Adulterers is a
murderers and
different thing.
adulterers, but I didn't believe it for homosexuals. Would I still be a hate preacher?
If you said people who commit adultery should be executed, yeah, I think when you say people
but
should
have
be
I
executed,
haven't I said that? Haven't I said that?
what?
That adultery should be punished with
Has he?
the death penalty?
Not with the same oomph, not with the same passion.
Probably not as many sermons
Not
that
as
are
many
talking about it,
sermons.
but I've said it, right?
I believe you've said it. Yeah.
So does that?
It's-
Here's a
it's the
question:
special
Is hate
focus.
ever okay?
It depends how you want to define it. Against who? For what? Again,
Do you hate anybody?
I hate plenty of people.
I don't hate anybody for anything personally. Hate is a very strong term, and maybe we're using the term differently. Like, maybe I am using the term differently from Hemant Mehta, who's using it differently from these guys. I don't know, but I just don't hate people. I want people to be better. I don't hate Donald Trump. I'm just disgusted by his behavior, and I want him to be a better person. I don't, like, wish death on him or whatever.
Okay.
It's the thing where you're
Would that
saying-
make you a hate podcaster?
No, because I don't spend my day saying, if all I did every day
is like
say,
posted about people that you don't like?
why don't
Do you
Because that's exactly what he's doing.
like
do you
that.
post like
You don't know
how
what
many
the gay people
positive
doing.
posts do you have on your Twitter? Or are they
none.
all negative?
They're all negative.
Okay,
No,
so does that
but
make
it's
you
not
a hate podcaster?
No, I'm telling you. No. Here's why. I'm saying
I'm just trying to play your logic.
you're
Oh my God, shut up and let him answer.
not saying this gay person is bad because they did this bad thing. You jump.
I did.
to
It's
the
because they were gay.
assumptions. You're jumping to the assumption that this person is gay. That makes them more likely to be a pedophile. That's
Which is false.
sort of leap. You don't know that person. That person didn't do anything wrong, but you're assuming the worst possible outcome.
And it's not even statistically accurate. Like, I'll give you this. The black community is more likely to be arrested for crimes, even when the white community commits those crimes at the same rate. But let's take it a step further and say the black community is disproportionately likely to commit some crimes. The reason for that is because the black community is heavily over-policed and impoverished and has historically been mistreated and shuttled into ghettos and haven't had an opportunity to get a leg up in society. They have no generational wealth. And poverty is like the number one, what's the word? Like, not predecessor, not precursor or pretext, but the number one, identifier or whatever of whether someone's going to commit a crime is if they're impoverished. And the black community is just now been allowed to start going around the monopoly board. Hundreds of years after Anglo-Saxons have gone around the monopoly board for like this entire time. Now the black community can start going around and collecting property. That's why there are only like 3 black billionaires or something. And there are like hundreds of white billionaires. Anyway, the point is that, in the US, I mean, the point here is that even in a case where it's true that, the black community commits more crimes, or even if it was true that gay people are disproportionately more likely to, like, take advantage of kids, that's not true. But even if it were, it's still completely unjustified to make assumptions about somebody based on their demographic like that. When you meet somebody, you start with a fresh slate. Everybody knows this. Even far-right nutcase extremists recognize this. This is Gavin McInnes. He's the founder of the Proud Boys and also the founder of Vice News, believe it or not. He doesn't have anything to do with Vice News. He hasn't since the early days. But anyway, he sat down to talk to Kanye West, who was on a parade around the country talking about how evil Jewish people are and how they should be second-class citizens. They shouldn't be allowed to work like in the workforce. They should have to work for Christians and only Christians, so on and so forth. Gavin McInnes surprisingly comes out, tries to convince Kanye West otherwise, saying that you should, he said that this is a black hole, that you're going down a black hole where you blame Jews for everything. And it's not productive. It doesn't really get you anywhere ultimately. You should be blaming elites, quote unquote, which isn't just the Jewish community. It also includes liberal elites and things like that. So listen to what McInnes says here.
This sort of ethnomasochistic cultural suicide tend not really to be Jewish. I call them ginos, Jews in name only.
Great name.
It's liberal elite whites you should have a beef with.
Yeah, but I lump them all in together. That's what I did.
That's good.
That's why the tweet said that, Jewish people.
Okay. But this trait, blacks are overrepresented in violent crime. But when you meet an individual black person, you don't apply that. You start with a fresh slate every time you meet someone. Do you do that with Jews?
Nope.
He's laughing because it's such an absurd thing to say. The point is that You need to always start with a fresh slate when you're dealing with somebody. Always, always, always. Because you can't make assumptions about that person. It's unfair to base your ideals, to base your ideas about them on stereotypes like that. And even the furthest right extremist Proud Boys creator understands that. It's apparently like not a concept that Kanye can get wrap his head around, or apparently not a concept that the NIFB preachers can wrap their heads around either.
Even if they didn't, I still want them to be put to death, though.
I know. And that's, to me, that's that line. I don't cross that line. I don't like a lot of people. I would never say, let's execute
So
them.
you might hate people or hate me or hate...
I don't think about people that much.
Do you think the death penalty should be applied to anyone for any reason?
No.
I don't either. Never. If for no other reason than because 4% of people on death row are 100% completely innocent. Imagine walking down the street, didn't do shit to anybody. You're walking home from work, and you're swarmed by police who subsequently arrest you, take you to prison, and send you through a trial where you're convicted. You're found guilty of murdering somebody, and you're given the death penalty when you didn't do anything to anybody. You're laying on the table, they stick a needle in your arm, they inject the drugs into you, your heart stops, you die. And you're completely innocent. Until that number is 0 rather than 4%, I cannot accept the death penalty, period. But even if that weren't the case, I don't think that the state should be deciding who lives and dies like that. That is not a good road to go down, seems to me.
So, if we found a serial killer that killed 30 people...
Put him in jail for life. If that person is guilty,
you
lock
think that's
him up.
better than executing them?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. You know why? Because if you execute them, then they get out of it effectively. They don't have to face accountability. They can just, you're bringing an end to their suffering, or bringing an end to their punishment, I guess you could say. Instead of being executed, they have to spend time thinking about what they did.
Why?
I don't think the death penalty is correctly applied. I think there's a lot of people who can and have slipped through the cracks because someone wanted a guilty verdict for...
You're just saying, because of innocent people, you don't want it.
But if it was perfectly implemented, would you agree
Yeah,
with
but
it?
that's not the world we live in.
Yeah, but wait a minute.
I wouldn't. Even if it were perfectly implemented, I would not.
If it's someone innocent, why would rotting in prison be better than being executed? Because in the same cases, they're wrongfully
justice
incriminated,
did not
right?
work in that case. You're right. That's why the opportunity for the appeals process and all that stuff. But there are people who, as far as we know, did not do the crime they were found guilty of. I can show you those cases and the proof behind it.
Absolutely, and they were executed too.
I find the death penalty to be immoral in general. But for the people who there's no doubt about their guilt, they did it. They confess to whatever.
I just think your punishment's worse personally. But let me ask this: if Jesus Christ came down from heaven and showed himself to you,
if there was proof,
I'm saying he's in person, he's talking to you, and he shows himself to you, would you choose to believe in him and believe the Bible?
Yeah. I mean, you're going back to if there was actual proof in front of your face, would you believe it? I think pretty much every atheist I've ever met has said, yeah, okay.
I mean, after I verified that it wasn't like the government didn't develop some new way of beaming stuff into your brain, yeah, I suppose I'd believe it then. After I verified it wasn't an alien race that came down and decided to manipulate humans by claiming to be Jesus. After I verified all of that shit, then I would accept it, I suppose.
I feel like I've met people or heard people say, even if he did, I still wouldn't want to believe in him because they just kind of...
Well, I wouldn't want to believe in him because he's kind of a scumbag, the God that these guys believe in at the very least.
hate the Bible and they say that
It's
openly.
not the hate of the Bible. That's not... It's never...
Do you feel like you hate the Bible?
No, I don't think about the Bible. It's it's a book.
You disagree with it, obviously, but I'm just saying you don't
disagree with certain
necessarily hate the Bible.
I don't think about the Bible. Right.
So
I love it. He's going with the old, he's going with the old God's not dead argument where that teacher claimed to be a staunch atheist, but it turned out he was really he believed in it all. He just hated God because God killed his blah, 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 whatever. It's just ridiculous. It's such a stereotype and such a caricature of reality.
You do commentary on it, though.
I do commentary. It's a job at this point. Like, I talk about it. I write about it. But you know this, if you followed anything I do, I really don't spend time debating this stuff. I don't spend time talking about this verse is wrong or anything like that. My interest
You just make videos proving every single verse wrong.
That was almost a joke. I mean, the videos I made that you're talking about, it started as kind of I think I can point out the contradictions in Genesis 1 and 2, and that might be amusing to some people. And then it just kept going. But by and large, most of the stuff I do that I write about, that I actually spend a lot of time on, it's what are people doing with their beliefs? And like, if someone said I'm inspired by Jesus to help the poor, that's great. I don't spend a lot of time on it. Do I think they're wrong about the belief stuff? I do, but I don't really care enough to write about that. That's not that interesting to me. On the other hand, if you guys say you believe in the Bible and that's leading you to say the things you have said that I have shared with people, that to me is like, okay, well, that's a problem in my view. Let's share that. Let's talk. I want Christians to have to defend you guys. I wish I'm almost mad that I'm the guy that pays attention to what you all say and other Christians are not. I want more. And it's not just you. If John MacArthur that you brought up or Greg Locke says something, I wish more Christians would call it out.
Yeah, those people are psychotic, both of them. Although Greg Locke has moved in another direction in recent years where he's moved away from politics heavily and he's moved toward quote-unquote deliverance ministry, but he's still psychotic.
Because stuff they say is harmful. Not just I disagree with it and it's wrong. It's like, no, you were saying something that is harmful. Where are Christians on that? I've said that many times. Like, why is it that there are right-wing watchdog groups, Right Wing Watch being one of them, or Media Matters or whatever, that are following what people on the right say about things? Why aren't they policed by their own people in any way? If someone in your congregations disagreed or had a problem with things you said, I can't count on any of them to call you out on it.
Well,
you know
do.
what I mean?
They do.
Maybe they do privately, but they're not going to do it in a way that anyone else will hear about. And that to me is like, okay, well then.
Well, have you seen our trolls? I mean,
but no one's listening.
We
to the
preach a
trolls.
lot.
Yeah, I haven't. I don't know what he's talking about. His trolls.
A lot of sermons.
And
admittedly, like I think that most of them are pretty boring to the general populace.
Absolutely.
And it seems like you're focused on identifying homosexuality as a regular course of action of like pointing out these clips. So like, why are you gay?
Say that again.
Why are you gay?
Based on what? Because I focus on.
Like you just like, why would a straight guy care so much about homosexuals?
Why do you?
Well, that's what I'm asking about him. Why does he zero in on it so much? He doesn't like. This is nearly the only thing that he preaches about, or I guess not the only thing, but it's one of the most egregious and focused things that he talks about. And anytime he wants to get attention, he says some crazy shit about gay people. So why? Is he gay? I mean, it's the same line of logic.
You think I care so much?
Because you're gay.
No, dude, I'm married. I have kids.
To a girl?
Yes,
Was she born a girl?
she was.
Okay,
No,
so
but
she still
this is the
identify
thing.
as a girl.
Dude, what a scumbag, man. Come on. Why are you like this? Why does he have to be a scumbag like this? Why can't he be a normal human being?
This is where I don't think you guys have empathy.
What
This
do you
is
mean
what
empathy?
I take away from your sermons.
But wait a minute. How can I have no empathy? I am interested in this. There's no way you think that we're that dangerous, because I don't think you would ever be willing to come into this room and have a conversation.
Well, he said earlier he doesn't think that these two guys are physically dangerous, but the things that they're saying and doing are encouraging domestic terrorist attacks.
With us, which is an arguably hostile environment to you. And if we were really dangerous or something like that.
I don't think you're dangerous. I think if I were gay, I don't think you would be dangerous to me in the flesh like this either. My concern is less about you guys and the other preachers. My concern is as you grow, as the new IFB grows, and as more people are drawn to this. And again, one thing you do very well is that you know how to use online stuff. Like, that is how your church has grown. It's through, like,
some of it, for sure.
A lot of it, like, has grown.
You know, he keeps saying that their church has grown. I've been thinking about that. I imagine that their church is growing. When church growth is measured, it's compared to, or it's measured as a ratio to societal growth. So how many people were added to the U.S. population in 2023? How many people are in the United States? What was the U.S. population growth, and how does that compare to these people's population growth, or these people's like denominational growth? Jehovah's Witnesses, as a percentage of the population, grew more in, I think, 2023 maybe, than any other denomination, surprisingly. Especially considering the fact that, like, Jehovah's Witnesses are... It's so hard for Jehovah's Witnesses to bring somebody in. It's like they bring in, like, one person for every 40 years of door knocking that somebody does, basically. So anyway, yeah, I guess they're growing in, like, a technical sense. They're growing, yeah, sure. But as a percentage of population, not really.
Grown through online, Rumble, YouTube, whatever it is. Steven Anderson knows that. Like, that's how he's grown too. As that stuff grows, and I've seen what happens when people fall down those rabbit holes online and they fall into these areas where, again, this is not, I'm not criticizing like the fact that you're white or something, but when men, who, especially white men, speak with confidence about anything, there are people who are drawn to that and take it as gospel. And like,
But I just think people are drawn to the truth. You're drawn to the truth because you listen to our preaching.
Is that why Joe Biden is so big and why he's got such a big media influence and he's so popular on TikTok and why he's the president? You can't possibly say that. People are drawn to the truth because there are contradicting beliefs and there are influencers of equal size that contradict each other. That doesn't even make any sense.
Of course.
I mean,
but
here-
that's my
here-
point.
I want
Like,
to ask this question, though.
They are drawn to you. I can't control what those people do. And my fear is when they hear what you are saying, not the boring stuff, because I'm guessing a lot of them aren't listening to the boring stuff. But they are listening when you were talking. And you know this too, because you get excited when you talk about this stuff. When you were preaching about
I got really excited about Zechariah chapter 4 last night. And
when you preach
and
about gay people
on Wednesday, at least.
you know that gets attention and people see it and the comments
Absolutely.
on the live
Honestly,
chats.
I wish I didn't have to preach about it. And here's the thing. If the laws were the way they were, the way that I wish they were or they were in the past, I don't think we would be preaching about it very much.
Now, he loves talking about this because it raises eyebrows and it gets attention and it gets people fired up. He loves it and he knows he does.
But can't you admit, at least in the culture, that's a major issue that are being brought up? I mean, there's a whole month celebrating LGBTQ in June.
October too.
I mean,
Oh my God, dude. It's not a month celebrating the LGBT community. It's a month recognizing the fact that these people can be proud of who they are. That's it. And what changes during Pride Month anyway? It's not like it's working up to some big holiday like Christmas or something.
it's not like this is a minor thing. It's obviously a big culture issue. A lot of people are directly
Is
impacted
Black
by
History
it.
Month okay?
I mean, but again, like I'm not. Black History Month is not something that I have to worry about because I don't go to work.
Yeah, and you don't have
they
to do
worry
anything
about
for
that.
Pride Month
They
either.
don't care. Yeah, but I
have
have
to
people
avoid-
protesting my church literally because of it. I have people damaging my property because of it literally.
guess-
Okay, that's unacceptable. I don't stand for that. No, Hemant Mehta doesn't stand for that. Nobody stands for that. But it's, and is it even true would be my first question. I would like to verify that that's factual. But either way, that's not the result of like Pride Month. That's the result of this guy being an extremist and being hateful and vile and saying that gay people need to die. If he wasn't saying shit like that, nobody would be there protesting his church in the first place.
Guess what? Don't damage your property.
Like, it's a direct result of his actions. Not that it's excused. It's not.
fully on board.
Yeah, but I'm
They
just
shouldn't.
saying, like, it's hard to say that
The
I.
protests you can ignore.
Yeah, but you,
when they're
you,
right
you
up in
have
your face
women and
and screaming at
children
your
coming
children.
into your building, and you have people screaming at them, threatening them, and all this stuff. It's hard to say that I'm not going to touch on those issues.
But that's the reason that this is happening. And also, is this even real? Does this happen? There's an apex predator in the window. Floof. Oh, yeah? Yeah, there is, isn't there? That's funny. Thanks for the super chat, Naricol. Oh, sorry. In the Philippines, a divorce bill is bound for approval. Should know that's bound to happen for a Catholic-dominated country. Wow, really? There's a divorce bill that's, like, about to be approved in the Philippines? Interesting. And I didn't realize the Philippines was predominantly Catholic. Huh. Knowing is half the battle, as they say, right?
About it. All this stuff. It's hard to say that I'm not going to touch on those issues or preach about it, because it's going to be a little bit more prevalent when you're dealing with it literally.
Why do you think they're protesting your church and not the Southern Baptist Church down the street?
Because they didn't preach the things that I preached, of course.
Right. But they do believe the same stuff about homosexuality being a sin.
Well, that's true.
Oh, my God. Yes, they do. Largely, Christianity believes that being gay is wrong.
True, but they don't believe in the death penalty for them.
Right.
And those comments are what caused a lot of controversy.
No, really? Is that what caused controversy? Is that why people are protesting? He's literally making Hemant Mehta's point for him right now. Get a grip on reality, bro. Seriously. And wow, I just got bodied by this little guy.
Caused us to get public attention,
Yeah.
and draw a lot of people out. But I think that it's also because they're reprobates, and they still are attracted to the truth. And I'm just kind of curious, like, do you think that you're a reprobate?
About what?
Like, according to the Bible, Romans chapter
I'm sure
1.
I am according to the Bible, but who
Why?
cares? I'm sure if you want to list whatever sins that you say the Bible says are sins, yeah,
But do you think it's possible for you to believe in Jesus Christ?
yeah, show me the proof. Right, like this is the game we could play.
Here's the thing. The Bible said it was by faith, right? You even admitted that. So that
Sure, the Bible says that you have to believe in Jesus by faith. And what is faith? Belief in things unseen. Basically, belief without evidence. That's what faith is, according to the Bible. It defines it for us. I'm sorry that I need evidence, but I'm just using, like, the brain that God gave me to reach conclusions about things. That's it.
that's not physical evidence.
Yeah, I mean,
So
and
do you think it's possible for you to believe in Jesus by faith?
it's possible.
It's possible. Okay.
It's probably not going to happen at this point.
Well, I mean, as much preaching as you've heard, it would definitely surprise me, to say the least. But of course, that would be great. I would want anybody to be saved, even someone like you, because
And
I don't personally hate you. I actually like the clips that you make, because
Yeah, I don't hate anybody. Again, like, Hemant Mehta is probably using the word differently than me, or than these guys are using it. But I don't think that I hate anybody for anything, and I don't think that Hemant Mehta does either, probably, if I had to guess.
because you always pull out, like, honestly, you pull out the best parts of all my friends' sermons, so I don't have to wade through all of the other stuff that I didn't want to listen to. I can just hear the cool cut out. And
That he didn't want to listen to. Isn't that like Bible preaching? You say you don't want to listen to Bible preaching?
you usually get really good sound bites and you put them together. So honestly, I enjoy the clips. I've even retweeted
I
several
know.
of your clips
But the
because I
flip
thought they
side-
were good.
The flip side of that, though, is there anything that would change your mind about being Christian at this point?
No, but I mean, that's the same as like many things. Like, I would never believe Santa Claus is real. I would never believe 2 + 2 is 5. I would never deny who my parents are. I mean, I look exactly like my dad. Like, you could never convince me my dad's not my dad. And the Bible teaches that when you
Oh, would a DNA test do the trick, I wonder?
get saved, it's like your eyes are opened. So here's the thing. After my eyes have been opened, I could never be convinced that I never saw before.
Yeah, but if I told you, yeah, there's no chance I'm going to become a Christian ever. I'm never going to find, I'm never going to find God at this point. Like, if I said that, you would say, oh, you're closed-minded. It could happen, whatever. Why is that not the same the other way around?
Well, I could say I'm fine with saying I'm closed-minded because I've already found the truth.
See, this is really interesting to me. This is an example of pure, unadulterated hypocrisy, it seems to me. These people are unwilling to change their mind on anything. Like, they will not cede anything to anybody, but they expect you to do so. Why would you expect somebody else to do what you are not willing to?
Like, once I've found the truth, like I said, I'm closed-minded to the Santa Claus being real. I'm never going to believe the earth is flat. I'm never going to believe.
I heard.
I'm never going to believe certain things. So that doesn't make me a closed-minded person just because I have certain dogmas
No, it does. It makes you a closed-minded person.
in my life. I'm sure you have certain dogmas in your life, and there's certain things that
No, I don't have any dogma. I can be talked out of absolutely, literally anything as long as I am given evidence for it. And that goes for Hemant Mehta too, I'm sure. Doesn't mean that we're going to like it. Let me rephrase. If these people's God, like the NIFB God, the hateful one that thinks that, like, gay people should be executed and all that, if that God was proven beyond a shadow of a doubt to be real, I would accept it. I wouldn't be happy about it.
that you already know are true or you hold to dearly that you would never change your mind on. And that doesn't mean that we can't still have other conversations and be open-minded in certain dialogues.
Most atheists that I have talked to, worked with in the past, every single one of them would say what I'm saying to you, which is, yeah, fine, show me the proof, or show me, it's possible. I think Dawkins, who I'm not a fan of, but Richard Dawkins said in his book too.
He's not a fan of you.
He is very much not. But even he said,
I didn't know that.
Really? I didn't realize that Dawkins wasn't a fan of Hemant Mehta either. Interesting. I'm not a huge fan of Dawkins, honestly. He's kind of a little bit of a... you know what? I guess the best phrase to describe Dawkins is probably just boomer. He's a little bit of a boomer, you know? He has bought right into the trans panic, Dawkins has. And it's just sad at this point. There have been a bunch of controversies, kind of a right-winger a little bit. He's done a lot for atheism generally, but he's really not a great person, sadly.
oh yeah,
What's the
beef.
deal?
We have
They
a
had a
beef.
beef a
Long
little
story.
while ago.
But
Okay.
he even said, like, if you want to say, like you are saying, I'm fully convinced God exists, and let's put you on one end of a spectrum. And if I'm saying I don't believe in God and I know God
Opposite
doesn't
side,
exist,
sure.
he's like, I'm not there. I'm a little before that. Like, I'm pretty convinced, but
Yeah, he says on a scale of 1 to 7, 7 being I absolutely do not believe at all. In fact, I actively believe that there is no God, and you could not possibly convince me otherwise. He said on that scale, I'm a 6. Because, you know, if you gave me the evidence, I'd accept it. That's Dawkins' scale. I think he brought it up in the God Delusion.
I'm sure there's something that could open my mind to it. Most atheists I know would be in that same
Right.
position. Not to change the subject, I did have one question I did want to ask. This is more for Pastor Thompson.
That's fine.
Which is that you said teachers who teach sodomy should be shot in the back of the head. That is a quote.
Yeah, I think I remember that one.
My question is, what do you think they are teaching in school?
Well, if they're teaching sodomy in school,
What does that
then
mean?
they're
But that's not happening. What are you talking about?
that they're teaching that you might be a boy or you might be a woman trapped in a man's body and all this other stuff.
No one's teaching anybody that in school.
Look, they're hanging pride flags in their classrooms.
What
They're-
does that... Wait. Go one at a time here for a second.
I don't know that that's even true, honestly. Yeah, I think that if any teacher hangs a pride flag in their classroom, I think it's like an outlying situation. I think it's extremely uncommon.
When are teachers teaching kids, you could be
wherever
whatever
the
gender
laws
you
are in
want.
place that they've changed the laws where you
And
can
what does
teach
the
it.
pride flag? Let's say there is a pride flag in the classroom or something.
They're saying I'm a queer. That's what
No,
they're
they're
saying,
not
and
saying
you could be
that.
one too.
No, they're not saying that.
They're actively promoting sodomy in school.
Hemant Mehta was a teacher. So I think Hemant Mehta, of all people, is more qualified to speak on the subject than maybe any of us.
So whether it's the law or not, it's a fact. The furry thing is real.
It's not. Do you know why they have a kitty litter?
Okay, the furry thing. Let me just talk about this for 1 second, all right? There's a claim by the far right that furries are in classrooms and that they're using litter boxes at the front of classrooms or whatever. This is Andrew Womack. He is a preacher with Kenneth Copeland's TV network on the Victory Channel. And he's really big and influential.
A friend of mine in Illinois actually knows a teacher that comes to school as a furry and wears ears and a tail and uses a litter box at the front of the classroom to relieve himself.
It's completely false. I can't even believe I'm sitting here saying this. That's false. Furries are simply people who like to... God, how do I... What word do I use? They're just play acting. They're just having a good time. Like dressing up as your favorite cartoon character. Like dressing up as... I don't know. God, I don't even know how to phrase it. They're just dressing up as their favorite cartoon character, effectively. There is no sexual component to this for furries, by and large. I get there's some very small subset of the population who integrates a sexual component to it, and that's weird. It's just anthropomorphized animals. That's it. It's just fun. What they're talking about when they bring up like people having the souls of animals or whatever, that's not furries. That's otherkin, and it's fake. That was made up by 4chaners. It was created as like what's the word I'm looking for here? It was created as like a kind of a joke, like a practical joke, making fun of other people. That's it. So this whole thing about they're teaching kids to be furries or whatever, no, they're not. And fascinatingly, I know where this started, this furry thing. It started with a woman named Lisa Hansen, late January 2022. She went to a school board meeting. She had 2 minutes on the clock to talk. This is the very first mention of litter boxes in classrooms that I could find. I believe this is where it started.
It was addressed by a child a couple months ago that they are put in an environment where there are kids that identify as a furry, a cat or a dog, whatever. And so yesterday I heard that at least one of our schools in our town has in one of the unisex bathrooms, a litter box for the kids that identify as cats.
Of course, it's fictitious. That didn't happen. There's no litter box in any bathroom, certainly not a litter box in the classrooms, the way that Andrew Womack said. It's all made up, all of it. And they're trying to bring this in under the trans umbrella, claiming that trans people are identifying as furries and stuff. No, this is all fictitious.
And I am really disturbed by that.
You notice she didn't even give us the name of a school. She didn't tell us which bathroom or which student she talked to or which whatever. None of that. She has no supporting evidence at all. None. It's because there is none to be had. It's because she made it up.
And I will do some more investigation on that. I know it's
Probably should have done the investigating before bringing it up here.
going on nationwide. I know it is. It's part of the agenda that's being pushed. I don't even want to understand it. But I think that people need to be aware of it, because I am really upset as a parent that my child is put in an environment like that. And I'm all for creativity and imagination, but when someone lives in a fantasy world and expects other people to go along with it,
That's a funny thing to come out of her mouth right now, right? When someone lives in a fantasy world and expects others to go along with it. I love it. That's that's a little too on the nose. It's exactly what she's doing right now, expecting others to go along with her fantasy.
someone lives in a fantasy world and expects other people to go along with it, I have a problem with that. So I'm just putting that out there. I will investigate more.
Yeah, she really should have investigated before bringing this stupid shit up. So anyway, that seems to be the source of the litter box claims. And shortly after this really started blowing up, pictures of litter boxes appeared, like litter boxes in classrooms or litter boxes in bathrooms or whatever. One of the pictures of a litter box in the bathroom was actually taken at an airport for pets. There was a litter box in the bathroom so that when people get off the airplane, they can let their pet use the bathroom. And another picture that was presented as evidence of this or whatever was a picture of litter in a classroom for emergency situations, like there's a flood or they need to use the bathroom because there's a school shooter or something. It was not in a litter box for people to use who identify as furries. These people all live in a fantasy land and are demanding that we live there with them and whipping people into a blood frenzy over it. Anyway, that's the real situation, the real answer to what is happening right now. So let's continue listening to these guys and see what they have to say about it.
It's a fact. The furry thing is real.
It's not. Do you know why they have a kitty litter box in that one classroom that you mentioned, which you said you looked up sources? Do you know why they have a kitty litter box in the classroom? Because in the act of a school shooting, if kids are locked down in their classroom for an extended period of time and someone has to go to the bathroom, that's why they have a kitty litter box in there. It's not
Irregardless of that.
No,
there are
Irregardless. Okay, go on.
point.
There are furries that are at school and they're kids that are pretending to be dogs and cats, and they're allowed to do this.
You, they're not doing that.
Okay.
But again, this is going back to...
I knew a bunch of really odd people in high school, just people who were very, very strange, into strange things, and just like into fandoms. Like they'd come to school dressed up as like Cloud from Final Fantasy VII or whatever. That's just like what kids do. They dress up as their favorite characters or whatever. And this guy is just like completely bent out of shape over kids having a personality of their own and an imagination and just doing their thing. How does this affect him at all? The answer is it doesn't. He's looking for some way to demonize people he views as political enemies, trans people.
I have taught in a public school.
Isn't there some schools though?
You attended them a long time ago. They weren't allowed to do that back then.
But I also taught in them relatively recently, and I work with kids in a public school now. And I'm trying to figure out, like, even in a sex ed class or something, they're not teaching that. What class do you?
Yeah,
think
but
they're
wait a
teaching
minute,
sodomy
because
in?
here's the thing. I understand there could be an ally, like someone could put up the flag, and they're not necessarily teaching it or promoting it, but they're just saying we want to be tolerant, or we want to help kids feel safe or something, and that's why they do it.
Yes,
but isn't there some school districts where they have demonstrated certain books that literally have what seems like pornographic type material or children committing sodomite type acts, albeit maybe it's characters drawn, it's not necessarily physical.
So he's asking, have schools promoted these books and had kids read them? No. Schools promoting a book is common practice. There are a lot of books that schools promote. Like, if you're a certain age, you'll probably remember the book The Indian in the Cupboard, right? That was a school promoting a specific book for a while. Schools promoted the Harry Potter novels. Schools encourage kids to read certain books at certain ages, and it kind of changes over the years. Kids were never encouraged to read any books that could possibly be interpreted as pornographic to any degree at all. Were there books in the library that contain weird scenes, questionable scenes, things that you don't understand unless you have the context for them? Sure, I suppose. It's not like they're being promoted by the school or whatever.
Photos or something. I mean, is that teaching sodomy? If you literally have sodomite acts in books and they're handing them out to children, is that not teaching?
It's not. They're not handing them out to children. And again, it's a complete misrepresentation of what's in these books. There are difficult situations that people must deal with in life. There's a book, what was it? Was it To Kill a Mockingbird? Or was it One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? Or I don't remember exactly what the book was. But there's a very famous old book that has stuff in there that one would normally look at and say, wow, that's like really not good. Like, I wouldn't want my kid reading about that. But given the entire context of the story overall, you understand that this is a necessary part of the story. And this is something that people deal with in everyday life. This is not like this isn't unusually placed. This is real life. And kids have to deal with this kind of shit all the time. So anyway, yeah, I don't want to hear any of this nonsense.
Teaching them sodomy?
This is where context matters. And I think it's a fair point. If you want to have a conversation, like what I would want to have is you tell me the book, you tell me what passage you have, because there are classic books that might have a sex scene in it. And in that case, let's discuss, like, what is it that we have a problem with? Is it the description? Because I don't think it should be taught to kids if it's just a sex scene for the sake of that. I'm making this up, but like if it's
right, definitely
Romeo and Juliet, or if it's a young adult novel where some kid masturbates or something and whatever. I don't know what the scene would be, and I don't know what the purpose of that would be. But the question is, what is the point of why we're trying to teach a particular book?
Heather Has Two Mommies. Is that one?
Heather Has Two Mommies, but that's not taught in school. That's not taught in school. But if it's in a library and a kid,
well, they have drag queens coming into schools and read.
They have drag queens coming into schools and reading books to kids. What school specifically? As far as I seriously deeply doubt that. He's going to have to give some evidence for that one. As far as I knew, there were only ever drag queens like hosting drag queen story hour at like private events. I've never heard of that before. Also, Dr. Hayes accurately points out the Bible has a ton of sex scenes in it that are really graphic. Like, holy shit. Kids should not be reading this stuff. I mean, stuff about like, who was it? Lot's daughters? I think it was Lot's daughters who, how else do I put it? They did unspeakable acts to him when he was drunk. And it's pretty descriptive. The Song of Solomon, pretty descriptive. but you don't have a problem with the Bible being in schools. To be honest with you, I don't have a problem with the Bible being in schools either, for that reason at least. Let me rephrase. I don't have a problem with school libraries containing a copy of the Bible for that reason and that reason alone. I have a problem with it having a Bible for other reasons. But, those scenes in the Bible, those stories or whatever, you have to know what you're looking for and where they are to be able to, read those scenes. And if you know what you're looking for and you're going there specifically for a reason, then I think that you're perfectly capable of handling what you're going to read in the Bible specifically, in those stories. I mean, it gets to be too much at a certain point, is entirely too graphic in some books. But in any book, in any school libraries, I will defend the fact that there's nothing in there that's too graphic for kids. If they go in search of it specifically, not if it's not forced down their throat, that's not acceptable. But if they're going in search of it, I think that every book in there right now is okay.
Reading them books like that, is that not true?
In public schools?
Yes.
Very few have, virtually none, have drag queens.
I've never heard of that ever happening. I can't even believe Hemant Mehta is qualifying it.
True?
In public schools?
Yes.
Very few have, virtually none, have drag queens coming in. That's probably
Where's
something
your
you would
news
see at a
source,
public-
man? I mean, it's
if you want to
they're
see
doing
it
it
at
at public libraries
at
too.
a public
Yeah,
library is different from a school bringing someone in to
no, but
do
schools
that.
are doing it.
But the point is,
I haven't heard of that.
okay, so a drag queen comes in. They're not doing a strip show. They're not reading a book saying anything. It's someone coming in very colorful, wearing stuff like
Well,
that.
here's the thing. I don't care.
Yeah, it's a show. They're not even trans. Drag queens are not trans necessarily. In fact, I don't think drag queens are ever trans, are they? I think if they're trans and they're not drag queens, they're just, presenting as women. If it's just like a drag queen show, then it's somebody dressing up and having a good time. And, it's just somebody pretending. It's just a pretend thing. Like having a show at any other place for any other reason or whatever.
What excuse somebody wants to give about their behavior? They're obviously a homosexual and they should be put to death.
Who are we talking
Yeah, what do you mean they're gay? No.
about?
A drag queen? If a drag queen's coming into
Drag
schools
queens are not
teaching,
necessarily.
well, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a
No,
duck.
that's my whole
What
point.
purpose would that sexual dance have to do with children?
Who's doing a sexual dance? Where are
Drag
you
queens are
finding these
dressed
people?
like a stripper, but they're a dude.
No, they're not. Not
dressed like a
all
girl.
drag queens are doing that. There are drag shows
sure.
that are adult themed. I will grant you that. The ones who are doing readings at public libraries sometimes in some places.
Ones with dragons on their heads that look like the
but
serpent
they are not
from
doing a
Revelation.
strip show for kids, and they're not reading sex scenes to kids. That is.
Well, I wouldn't
that's
put
not
anybody
happening.
to death. I wouldn't.
be a Palestinian.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, this is like a bizarre fever dream that he seems to have dreamt up.
I wouldn't put anybody to death for that, but I would put them to death again for being a sodomite. And if they commit a sodomite act, which I'm sure that individual's guilty of. I'm sure if a man's dressed up like a literal drag queen, he's for sure committed sodomy.
You're literally skipping the whole let's go through the court of justice.
No, I'm not skipping anything. I'm saying
No, he is. He's skipping the whole thing.
I wouldn't bring up in court this person read books to children. I wouldn't bring that. It'd be like this person committed this act, and these are the witnesses, the evidence is the proof.
Witnesses. No, but going
There
back
could
to
be
the-
witnesses.
This is I taught at a public school. I work with public school children. I know what they teach. I have friends because I was there.
Yeah, but
who are
schools
teachers.
change all the time.
They do change
and
all the time.
it's based on an individual. It's not based on every teacher teaches this exact same thing.
But I'm saying, where in the curriculum, what do you think they're teaching about sodomy? Where does that happen?
I don't think there's
in
any
school?
state-sponsored curriculum that
No,
teaches
there
that.
isn't.
Oh, how about that? Really? You don't think that? So what, has he just been lying this whole time? Because that's how this conversation got started in the first place. Said they're teaching sodomy in public schools. No, they're not. And when pressed on it, he admits it. So what was this whole conversation about? Why did he even bring this up?
Of course there's not.
There's
Washington
individuals
just passed a
though,
law where
that do
they're
things like that.
allowing it in schools.
Allowing what?
the teaching of sodomy.
No, they're not.
What is he talking about? There are laws that have been passed that allow sodomy to be taught in schools. What would that even mean exactly?
Pretty sure it just
There's
passed.
no way that's the law. I want to know what that law would be that you were referring to. That
Yeah. I don't have it off the top.
I mean, there's
Yeah, he doesn't have that off the top of his head because it's fictitious. Hemant Mehta and I keep up with laws like this, like anything related to the LGBT community, anything related to atheism or secularism or church and state, whatever. I watch this shit like a hawk. And my wife is like in law school. She's got like 1 semester left in law school. She watches for these types of bills and stuff all the time too. And I've never heard of this before.
there's plenty of teachers that have just been
But I just
self-admitted and saying
I
they're
said-
teaching it.
You read that
Teaching
quote.
what?
I said if they are teaching that, though, in their 2 children in classrooms, that they should be shot in the back of the head, which would make them, they're teaching, they're corrupting children.
But you're making up something that doesn't exist. And again, my fear is
I don't think that's. I think there's plenty of examples.
my fear is there are people
There are not. There are 0 examples of this.
who are going to hear that and they say, well, I have a teacher that has a pride flag in the classroom. And my fear is they're going to jump to that conclusion without
No,
taking
I
any
think
of the
that's
steps.
a big leap. And,
It is a
and
big-
It's really not a big leap. People have been arrested for that kind of conclusion before, like reaching that conclusion, deciding to take the matter into their own hands by like bringing a gun and doing something about it. That's happened before. That's not a leap.